Welcome to episode 108 of the Rise or Die podcast, Burning Bridges. So I had a really tough decision to make over the last couple of days. One of my best employees that I've ever employed, and I have in two different companies I've owned, decided to leave. And it's actually because I gave him the complete option to do so without any hard feelings. I did this only because I find personal relationships more important than business. But it wasn't always like that. For the vast majority of my life, and I'm 22, but I started trying to be an entrepreneur and side hustle and whatnot when I was about 10. And from the time I was as young as, let's call it 14, to the time I was 21, I burned every personal relationship, every bridge that was important, or what I should say was important in my life. It wasn't because I was antisocial, but because I was so focused on what didn't matter, which was only money. Money and business in general are all I cared about. It's the only thing that I realized I was good at, so I put everything into building a business. I was skipping all the extra high school curricular activities and whatnot and going straight to work. In fact, I got out of high school at 12:30 every day senior year because I had too many credits. I would go work a full-time job and then go home from that job and try to figure out the next way that I could build a business of my own. So it's good and bad, right? The building a business piece, because I'm 22, I have two businesses, and I'm doing very well. I'll leave it there. But with that being said, I didn't have as many friends as I do for a long time because I frankly didn't invest in my friends. I didn't invest in even family relationships with my sister, with my dad. My mom and I were tight most of the time, but I burned all of these, not realizing it, but I burned through people. It was really hard to have a relationship with me when it was one-sided and all I wanted to do and talk about was business. Now, maybe you can't relate to this extent. Maybe it's not something that's completely relevant to you. The principle behind this is relevant to everyone. Don't get so caught up in your business success that you ignore the people around you. The people that are supposed to be there, whether you're broke, whether you're rich, whether you're going through a hard time, and you're supposed to take them with you during the high times. And I wasn't doing any of that. I was just grinding. Here's one of the biggest realizations I ever had. When I started to actually invest in people around me, when I started to take an hour or less to of work a day and start to send a text to someone who's important, write a little note to my wife, spend some actual quality time with my wife, I was able to create more mental space, more mental capacity so that I could actually do more in business. One of the hardest things I ever did was leaving my dad's company. Now, we grew up at odds with each other. Or I should say, I grew up at odds with my dad. He used to travel, 200 plus days out of the year, work a ton. I was on the same path that he was, but obviously there's a giant ass age difference. And I really resented him for it. He came back around. He's an awesome dad. But I was starting to then do the same thing, starting to ignore people just like he did way back when, ignore people so that I could build a business. And then here's the real problem. I was so distracted. I was working for my dad, and then I was trying to go figure out how to build my own business. I was so distracted. He and I were once again at odds. This is when I was 19, 20, 21 years old. We started to go through this shift towards the negative in our relationship yet again. And after we had repaired a lot of damage and worked so hard to have a relationship, that was a really shitty feeling. That's part of the catalyst that drove me to start 21 Leap in Invictus, so that I could fully exit my dad's company, not to spite him, but to actually repair our relationship, so that he wasn't spending on me when I wasn't producing like I used to because I was too distracted over here. Actually wanted to repair our relationship. The same thing happened with my now ex-employee, but still one of my best friends, even this week. We decided that he was distracted with other things, other ambitions, and that was okay. But instead of both of us feeling the tension from butting heads and trying to get more out of each other, that's really what it came down to. There's no hard feelings. He's still a guy I would do anything in the world for. instead of giving him the finger and, saying fuck you and burning that bridge, I realized relationships are much more important. Let's say you make $1 billion tomorrow. You win the lottery. Who are you going to spend that with if you burned every bridge? If you haven't invested in the relationships that are supposed to be important to you? You simply can't. So I'm going to focus specifically on balance today. Not body being balance and business, just balance. What relationships have you been ignoring or lacking an investment in? Is it your kids, your wife, your girlfriend, your fiance? Hopefully not girlfriend and wife. It's just a little corny joke there. What relationships do you need to invest more in? That's what I'll leave you with today as we wrap up this episode. Now, as always, do me a favor, if you're getting any sort of value out of this whatsoever, I would love a subscribe, a like, whatever you're willing to do. We're trying to get this message of the Rise or Die podcast out to as many people as possible. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap it up for today. But as always, I will see you tomorrow for the next episode of the Rise or Die podcast.